Actions speak louder than words, and the cutting off of funding with just a few hours' notice is not helpful to this important organisation. So can I ask her what steps will DLUC now take to support dialogue in any areas where it has been lost?
I'd like to thank my the Honourable Lady for her question. As I say, DLUC funds a number of organisations who work very intensively at a local level to support interfaith work and community cohesion.
Jim Shannon.
Deputy Speaker, declaring interest as Chair of the APPG for Freedom of Religious Belief. As images outside this House last night made clear, it is very important that people of all faiths have a point to meet and to focus on the things that draw us together rather than those things that divide us. How will government and how will the Minister achieve this when these bodies close? That's the interfaith network. And how can we, and that means all of us in this House together and outside of this House, continue on journeys of embracing all faiths and awareness of those faiths?
I think understanding of faiths is incredibly important, and that is why we encourage interfaith work, especially at a local level. And I've already talked about what I do in my own constituency, and I find it very valuable. But in this particular instance, we cannot continue to fund the interfaith network, but we do fund other organisations and we wish them well. And we have always made clear to the interfaith network that they need to develop alternative sources of funding.
I thank the Minister for answering the urgent question, and we now move on to business questions. Shadow Leader of the House, Lucy Powell.
To ask the Leader for the forthcoming business.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The business for the week commencing the 26th of February will include, on Monday the 26th of February, consideration of a humble address following the return of the devolved institutions in Northern Ireland, followed by a general debate on farming. Tuesday the 27th of February, remaining stages of the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Bill. Wednesday the 28th of February, second reading of the Pedicabs London Bill, Lords. Thursday the 29th of February, debate on a motion on language in politics on International Women's Day, followed by a general debate on Welsh affairs. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. On Friday the 1st of March, private members' bills. The provisional business for the week commencing the 4th of March includes, on Monday the 4th of March, a debate on a motion on risk-based exclusion following the recommendations from the House of Commons Commission, followed by a general debate subject to be announced. Tuesday the 5th of March, second reading of the Automotive Vehicles Bill, Lords. Wednesday the 6th of March, my right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, will deliver his budget statement. Thursday the 7th of March, continuation of the budget debate. Friday the 8th of March, the House will not be sitting.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, yesterday was a very difficult day in the House of Commons, and for Mr Speaker personally, as he did his utmost to do what he thought was in the best interest of the House. We should all reflect on how we got to where we got to, and all accept our parts in that. I welcome his desire to resolve these matters in discussions with us and across this House, and I'm sure that the vast majority of members accept his genuine and heartfelt commitment to this House, and that he always has the best intentions in his decisions. I don't want to go over those issues now, except to say that I am grateful to him for seeking to enable the widest possible views being expressed. No one could have foreseen events unfolding as they did. As it was, was...
Order! Order! Let's not have a repeat of the behaviour last night. Can we listen to each other? Listen to each other with respect. With respect. It's not good to have this shouting at the Shadow Leader of the House. Calmness, please. Lucy Powell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As you say, it really isn't a good look. I don't want to go over those issues now, except to say that I am grateful for him for seeking to enable the widest possible views being expressed, and no one could have foreseen that. As it was, with the Scottish National Party indicating they would vote for our amendment, along with many members from the benches opposite, it was right that it should be put. The government made an extraordinary decision to withdraw itself from the debate, raising a number of questions. However, let's not forget we were discussing the most serious of matters, that of life and death, war and conflict, and how we as a country and a parliament could play our part in bringing about a much longed for lasting peace based on a two-state solution. It is with regret, Madam Deputy Speaker, that at such a time we didn't show ourselves at our best, and that parliamentary antics were the story and not Parliament coming together with one voice, saying we want the fighting to stop with an immediate humanitarian ceasefire and a meaningful process. We can all reflect on that. Finally on this, I hope a further reflection is that this place should have more time, not less, to debate and discuss these very profound matters. And it shouldn't be left to Opposition Day debates and urgent questions to get them aired in the first place. Madam Deputy Speaker, as we debate these important matters, a long shadow is increasingly cast over us. Threats, intimidation and security concerns. I mean, it's remarkable. I know it is of huge concern to Mr Speaker too, and something which keeps him awake at night and is his first priority. And can I join him in praising the security team working to keep us safe? Of course, the legitimate lobbying of members is part and parcel of our job and our democracy. That at times can be robust too, and we can all disagree strongly. Yet we are increasingly seeing a line being crossed. I know members feel uncomfortable discussing their experiences for fear of attracting more unwanted attention, or because we don't want to come across as whinging when we have such privileged positions. But during recess, we saw another line crossed with the intimidation of a member and their family at their family home. Reports that other organisations will be targeting the homes of MPs ahead of and during the election have caused huge anxiety too. It's a totally unacceptable development. Oh, no noise for that one. Not just for MPs, their families, neighbours and staff, but it's anti-democratic and undoubtedly now starting to affect people's decisions and their behaviours. That is wrong, and we must do more to address it. So does the leader agree with me that the police should take a much more hardline approach to so-called protests taking outside the homes of members of Parliament? Can she confirm that police should use powers they have to stop such protests and confer the guidance we issued? Does she also agree with me that we need to look at the causes, not just the symptoms, of this sometimes toxic and febrile environment? First, that we have a duty to be careful with our language and how we conduct ourselves, how we challenge one another, and how we should avoid stoking division. Next, that more should be done with extra powers given to regulate social media and elsewhere to tackle the spread of mis- and disinformation, deep fakes and other dangerous material. And also, with the rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and hate, can the leader confirm that the government will actually bring forward a hate crime and extremism strategy with some urgency? And finally, that the Defending Democracy Task Force should now have a broader remit to defending democracy from within our borders, and we should take a more cross-party approach as we head to what is likely to be a very testing general election.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. First of all, can I join with all those who have paid tribute to Alexei Navalny, who, in the wake of an assassination attempt, returned to stand with his fellow countrymen against Putin's tyranny, knowing full well what that might mean for him and his family. He put his country and his countrymen before himself. Can I also remind the House that the government will again outline its position on the very serious matter of Israel and Gaza in a written ministerial statement soon. Can I say to the Honourable Lady opposite that I would join her firstly in her thanks to our security services, particularly those of the House authorities, in keeping us safe, and point to our record on adapting legislation to cope with the evolving nature of some pretty awful protests that not just MPs but the general public have been putting up with, the work that we have been doing in the House on social media, the new services in the House of Commons Library, and the Defending Democracy Task Force. It would be nice to have the opposition's support in those matters, in particular the legislation that we will bring forward in the future. I want to say that this House will never bow to extremists, threats or intimidation. It has not, it will not, it must not. And I would ask all honourable members not to do this House a further disservice by suggesting that the shameful events that took place yesterday were anything other than party politics on behalf of the Labour Party. Let me bring the House up to date. Two significant things happened yesterday, and I'm not sure all honourable members have clocked. Firstly, it fell to the government benches to defend the rights of a minority party in this House. If the Honourable Lady opposite cannot bring herself to reflect on the appalling consequences of her party's actions yesterday, if she cannot rise above the narrow and immediate needs of her weak and fickle leader, to fulfil her duties to this House as its shadow leader, perhaps she might like to reflect on the damage her party has done to the office of the Speaker. I would never have done to him what the Labour Party have done to him. Secondly, we have seen into the heart of Labour's leadership. Nothing is more important than the interests of the Labour Party. The Labour Party before principle. The Labour Party before individual rights. The Labour Party before the reputation and honour of the decent man that sits in Speaker's chair. The Labour Party before fairness, integrity and democracy. In Rochdale, the Labour Party before a zero-tolerance policy towards anti-Semitism. Many of us knew this about the Labour leader. I saw it in his frustration of our country getting the best deal possible when we left the EU. The Labour Party before country. I have to tell the Honourable Lady opposite, the people of this country don't have a copy of standing orders of this House lying around their house. They haven't been chatting about parliamentary procedure over their cornflakes this morning, but they value fairness. They want the rights of all to be protected. They cannot abide bullies and cheats. They cannot abide people who trash our nation or fail to defend its interests or the institutions that protect them. We often, on this side of this House, rightly criticise the former leader of the Labour Party for the things he stood for and for being wrong on those matters. But I will tell you one thing about the former leader of the Labour Party. At least he thought he was right on those matters. The current leader of the Labour Party is quite happy to do what he knows to be wrong. He puts the interests of the Labour Party before the interests of the British people. It's the Labour leader that doesn't get Britain, and the past week has shown that he is not fit to lead it.
Sir Bernard Jenkins.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I suggest that the priority of this House should be to command the public confidence of our voters, and that I don't think they, or indeed a majority in this House, feel that we resolved anything on the question of Gaza and Israel yesterday. So can I suggest to my right honourable friend that the government should take up the suggestion of the shadow leader of the House and hold a debate in government time on a government motion, so that every motion and every amendment can be considered. And that would draw a line under this matter.
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for his suggestion? I think it was an additional sad thing that what happened yesterday with regard to the Speaker happened on a day when the SNP were trying to hold an Opposition Day debate on the most serious of issues. I have heard what the honourable gentleman has said, and I will be speaking to business managers.
SNP spokesperson Owen Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, obviously, yesterday was incredibly disappointing from our point of view in terms that was meant to be an opposition day. It's one of only 3 times in the calendar year where our party gets an opportunity to put forward our business to the House. And I don't think it was a surprise to anyone what we were coming forward with. We had been allocated an opposition day 4 or 5 weeks ago, and for very understandable reasons that had to be moved when the Northern Ireland Assembly was reconvening, so we totally understood why that had to be moved. And at that stage, there were conversations asking me when we'd see sight of the Gaza motion that we'd be bringing forward. So for anyone to suggest they didn't know that that was the topic that we might be coming forward with is quite extraordinary. Yeah. So when we actually got to that position, and on our opposition day, one of the very few times we do get to have our policy put forward, our voice was silent when our vote was not able to be taken. And that is incredibly disappointing for me and incredibly disappointing for the significant numbers of my constituents, and I know the constituents of my colleagues and other colleagues from across this chamber who wanted to support that motion. So could I ask the Leader of the House, given that effectively we did not get an opposition day yesterday, can we have an allocation of an alternative date for our opposition day, given that didn't happen? We lost, as others have said, a significant amount of time at the start of the debate, and because of the decision of the Speaker, unfortunately, Madam Deputy Speaker, we lost 40 minutes at the end of that debate. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but that meant that colleagues were cut short and some withdrew. So from that point of view, I would ask the Leader of the House what consideration she could give to that. And beyond that, what consideration can be given to the protection for the smaller parties, not simply being railroaded for political purposes one of either of the bigger parties. Now, where I do echo the comments of the Shadow Leader of the House, I think it's critical that all members of this place, whatever their position or status, are protected from bullying and intimidation. I think it's entirely unacceptable if reports are to believe that there is reporting across many media outlets that there was significant pressure put on Mr Speaker to come to his decision yesterday. And can I ask the Leader of the House what steps she is going to take to investigate these very, very serious claims? Because if there is anything of substance to these, that is an affront to any democracy where a party leader can direct decisions of the chair of this place. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, as Chief Whip, I am involved in a number of conversations, as you know, on how business comes forward. And I had direct assurances that I would have a vote on the words of my motion yesterday. Everybody knew the potential outcome at the end of yesterday's debate well in advance, so to suggest that nobody knew that that was going to be the outcome is utter nonsense. The reason that we were in the position we were in was because the normal conventions and standing orders of this House were overruled against the advice of the clerks, and that only happened because the Labour Party wanted to get dug out of a hole, and it's unacceptable.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is no secret to anyone that regularly tunes into these sessions that I frequently disagree with the Scottish National Party on everything that they raise in this chamber. But they have a right to say these things on the floor of the House and debate their issues. If I was able to speak in the debate yesterday, I would have been critical of how they brought forward the motion and perhaps their motives for doing so. But it is their right to do that. And our standing orders protect the ability, in particular of minority parties, to be able to have those debates. There are serious consequences to the decision that was taken yesterday for minority parties and also for the government. Our motion an amendment was the only one, for example, that mentioned violence against women and girls that took place. So this is very important, and we need to make sure that those rights of minority parties are protected going forward. I am very sympathetic to the SNP being given more time. I also have to say I'm sympathetic about it being knocked off the Labour Party's allocation. And with regard to the serious matter of Mr. Speaker did come to the House yesterday. He did apologise, and I know he is meeting with all parties on this matter, and I will be meeting with him later today.
Andrew Rossington.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Leader of the House will be aware that I represent Romford, which is in the London Borough of Havering, and it's historic Essex market town. But will she please arrange for a debate to take place on the floor of the House about the fairness of local government funding? My borough is nearing bankruptcy because of the failure to have a fair funding system for boroughs like Havering. We're also fleeced by the Mayor of London, who takes huge sums of money from places like Havering to fund the Greater London Authority. So can we please have a debate that will bring about reform to local government in Greater London and give fairer funding for boroughs like Havering, and hopefully a referendum in Havering so that we can go back to being fully part of Essex?
Well, I welcome the honourable gentleman back to his place, and he is quite right to raise pressures on his council, particularly those born from the Mayor of London, whose budget is in crisis. Across the board, local government has had about a 7% uplift, but there are clearly some local issues and particular pressures that London boroughs are facing because of the Mayor's mismanagement. He will know that the next questions to the Secretary of State on this matter are on the 4th of March.
Chair of the Backbench Business Committee, Ian Mearns.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, could I thank the Leader of the House for the business statement and for announcing in particular the backbench business debates for next Thursday. And I think the Leader of the House will be aware that now, between now and Easter, that the Backbench Business Committee has little or no time to allocate for debates here in the Chamber beyond next Thursday due to other business encroaching into Thursdays, including the budget debate, for instance. And I'm wondering, therefore, if there is to be any additional time between now and the Easter recess, if the if the leader could possibly tip me a wink as soon as possible. And also, if she could tip us a wink via the normal channels regarding the date of the Estimates Day debates, please. We would really appreciate that, so we can actually get those wheels into motion. Of course, we will continue to welcome applications for debates in Westminster Hall on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, we've actually written as a committee to the Procedure Committee to ask them to change standing orders in Westminster Hall so that Westminster Hall debates on Thursdays can begin at 12:30 instead of 1:30. It seems to me it's something which hasn't sort of caught up with the way in which the parliamentary timetable has changed over the years, and it might actually facilitate better attendances at those debates on a Thursday afternoon.
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman again for his advert for the Backbench Business Committee. He knows that I'm very keen to give him time and early sight of the allocation so that he can slot in those debates, and certainly also to make him aware of when the dates for when those estimate debates will take place. I hope to be able to update him very shortly.
Sir Jake Berry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Would my right honourable friend agree that it's hard for market towns to thrive without an open bank? And that's why I hope she'll join me in congratulating the people, the businesses in Bakeup in Lancashire, as well as Link UK Cash Access and the ATM network, who have worked with me to deliver on my pledge to bring banking back to Bakeup. That's why I hope we can find time in this House to have a debate on the new banking hub that is opening in a fantastic historical market town in Lancashire. Yeah.
Well, can I congratulate my right honourable friend and his constituents who have worked to ensure that these services are continuing. It is understandable, as costs are looked to be cut by banks, that they give up bricks and mortar, but that doesn't mean the disappearance of those vital services for our communities. Well done to all, and I'm sure that many honourable members will be asking for some advice in the future.
Sir Ben Batchel.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Devon and Cornwall Police have been in special measures since 2022 after multiple failings, and last week it was revealed that 7 current and former women police officers are suing the force for failing to deal with rapes, beatings and psychological torture by male colleagues over a number of years. I wonder if she could arrange for a Home Office Minister to make a statement reassuring the people of Devon and Cornwall and serving women police officers that these allegations will be thoroughly independently investigated and any wrongdoing punished.
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for raising this terrible situation. He will know that the next Home Office questions is on the 26th of February, and I would encourage him to raise it directly with the Home Secretary there. But given the serious nature of this, I will make sure that the Home Secretary has heard what he has said today, and that at the very least his office is updated.
Robert Jenrick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would my right honourable friend agree with me that the real issue of the events of the last 24 hours is not the party political shenanigans suggested by the shadow leader of the House? The real issue is that this House appears cowed by threats of violence and intimidation. The Mother of Parliaments appears weakened and diminished as a result. We have allowed our streets to be dominated by Islamist extremists, and British Jews and others to be too intimidated to walk through central London week after week. And now we're allowing Islamist extremists to intimidate British members of Parliament. This is wrong. It has to stop. Would my right honourable friend organise a debate on extremism and how we tackle this challenge, which is one of the central issues facing our generation?
Well, I could not agree more with my right honourable friend. British Jews are suffering a grotesque level of hatred and abuse, which quite frankly shames our country. And he is absolutely right that there cannot be any tolerance or quarter given to those individuals that threaten and try and prevent members of Parliament conducting their business and honouring the obligations they have to their constituents to use their judgment when they come into this place. He will know that there is a tremendous amount of work going on with the House, with government, to ensure that we protect democracy and that we are protecting all communities in Britain. And I will make sure that the Home Secretary has heard his remarks today.
Vicky, sorry. Barry Shearman.
Madam Deputy Speaker, thank you for that. This is quite a ticklish question in the sense that last night, I'm the longest serving member on this side. I've not seen scenes that we saw yesterday, I think only on one other occasion. Indeed, it was shameful, I thought, that the BBC had to blank off the proceedings at one stage from the crude and vile language that was coming from one end of this chamber. So I think, could I ask the Leader of the House, can we seriously review what went wrong yesterday and to get it sorted? Because I have every confidence... Can I allow to say, we should learn from what happened yesterday rather than carry on the awful rowdy behaviour that we saw. But could I just get one little... This is about business questions. Can I have an early debate on those people up and down the country, mainly in the north of England, but also in Wales, that are being fleeced by lawyers and legal companies over cavity wall insulation, where people have got badly cavity wall insulation, and they are then being absolutely ruined and losing their homes because of predatory lawyers.
Yeah. Leader of the House.
With regard to the honourable gentleman's first point, I don't think there is any doubt what took place yesterday, and it was completely shameful. And I don't think there is any doubt about the procedural consequences of it. If members are still in the dark about that, the clerk of the House has provided some very clear advice. And I do want to take the heat out of this. I think that we do need to reflect on what has happened, but I can tell him, as Leader of this House, I will defend the rights of all members to air views and to, in the case of opposition parties, for their voice to be heard in this chamber. And it was to my great sadness that it fell to me yesterday to do that for this place. With regard to his other matter, I shall make sure the Secretary of State has heard what he has said.
Points of order will come after the select committee statement. If the honourable gentleman had wanted to intervene in business questions, I would of course have called him if he'd been here at the beginning. But I'm afraid I do have to direct him to make his point of order at the end of the select committee statement. And whilst I'm about it, it just might be useful for me to remind honourable and right honourable members that any criticism of the Speaker or Deputy Speakers can only be done on a substantive motion. I just want to remind, bearing in mind what the Leader said about taking down the temperature, just a reminder that that is the case. Vicky Ford.
Madam Deputy Speaker, in order to be here at this time, I have delayed giving a personal statement to the police on the latest individual who thinks it's fair game to harass, stalk and threaten members of this House. It is clear that the lack of transparency over the reasons why we sometimes vote one way or another mean that these votes are often willfully misinterpreted and used to drum up hatred against parliamentarians, and that this perverts our democracy. I would like to make a suggestion. The European Parliament has many flaws, but in that place it is possible to lay a written explanation of vote on the Parliament's website beside one's voting record. The opposition spokesman, the government spokesman do it on behalf of the party. Any individual member can place their own written explanation of why they have voted the way they have. It stops the votes from being misinterpreted, it keeps members safer, and it stops democracy being perverted. So will my right honourable friend, the Leader of the House, take this idea on board, stop the opposition from wilfully misinterpreting our votes on opposition days, and help keep our democracy safe?
Well, firstly, I'm sure I speak on behalf of all in this House to say how sorry we are to hear that the Honourable Lady is having to endure the abuse that she is having to endure. As I stated at the start of this business statement, this House will never kowtow to extremists or intimidation, and honourable and right honourable members take their responsibilities in this place and to their constituents extremely seriously. I thank the Honourable Lady for her very helpful suggestion, and I shall certainly look at that. But I would just say that whilst we can update and do things in this place to help members of the public understand what is actually going on and draw clarity on what our proceedings are actually focused on and what we are voting on and why, we are all obliged to act with honour and integrity and support democracy in this place. And I have no jurisdiction for opposition attack ads. And I think if there is any reflection to be done in the recent last 24 hours, I'd ask the opposition to reflect on that.
Vera Hobhouse.
Madam Deputy Speaker, may I add my thanks to the security services who are working very hard and effectively to keep us all safe, including actually for a community meeting I had last week in my Bath constituency. They did sterling work, so thank you very much. The leader will know that I'm a member of the Restoration and Renewal Programme Board. We all love this magnificent place of work and appreciate that we can work in this wonderful Palace of Westminster. But the structure of this place is not in a good way. And it needs, as we refer into our meetings, into our restoration and renewal meetings, as it needs open heart surgery. I'm talking about the structure of this building. For much of last year, myself and colleagues on the board were working hard to identify a short list of options for delivering R&R, which we felt would command the support of members across the House. It is frustrating, given all the work that we've put in, that we are still no closer to making progress. We need to maintain momentum and get on with R&R. When and how will members be updated on the options and proposals of R&R so that we can move forward and restore the buildings? I'm talking about the building and the important work that needs to be done in order to keep us and everybody who works here safe. Thank you.
Well, can I firstly thank the Honourable Lady and all those who have been serving on both the Programme Board and the Client Board. The House will be pleased to know that great progress has been made. We've been able to get some real grip and granularity into the programme, and we also have a number of projects which we can just get on with whilst we are looking at decant options and other things that will take more time. The next Client Board meeting, she knows, will be Monday, which will look to take some of those decisions. But of course, this House needs to be cited on programmes that are going forward and those options, and it must have a say in those too.
Sir Edward Lee.
I think the Speaker was quite right to withdraw from the debate. The Leader of the House was right to withdraw from the debate when it was clear that conventions were being broken. And I think those who put pressure on the Speaker to break with convention, I think should reflect on their action. And if it was because members of Parliament could be intimidated or at risk for how they voted, that is even worse and actually quite frightening. But having said that, I think the Speaker has said he made a mistake, and the House relies on us having confidence in the Speaker, I think we should move on now, and I would recommend that we don't put in motions of no confidence, but that actually we restore our reputation as soon as possible by having a proper debate on a government motion where all amendments can be considered.
Well, can I thank the right honourable gentleman, my right honourable friend, for what he has said and the tone that he has struck in saying it. The Speaker came to this House last night. He took responsibility for his actions. He apologised. He is reflecting on what has happened, and he is meeting with all parties. And I hope that everyone who was involved in those events yesterday and the consequences of them will also reflect on their actions and take responsibility for them.
Alan Brown.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituent Charlie McCarroll's campaign for redress for victims of sodium valproate, and he fed into the Baroness Cumlodge's report, which as far back as 2020 recommended a compensation scheme. Now, another constituent, Jill McQueen's, contacted me. She states, "I will not be around forever. I need to know my children will be financially secure." Now, the Patient Safety Commissioner has also recommended compensation should be paid and laid a report to the Government. So when will the Government design a compensation scheme for victims of sodium valproate, and will they confirm that it will be a UK-wide scheme so that the children of my constituents get the compensation and the support they deserve?
Can I thank the honourable gentleman for raising this question? I think this report has been quite recently published, and the Government has committed to responding to it very swiftly. He will know that the next questions to the Secretary of State are on the 5th of March, but I will make sure that they have heard what the honourable gentleman has said and update his office.
Sir John Hayes.
Speaker, the Leader of the House will have heard yesterday me ask the Prime Minister a question about food security and the threat to that, which is posed by a string of monstrous pylons which will run down the East Coast through some of the most productive farmland in the country. Simultaneously, we face huge solar plant applications on the best land we have that feeds the nation. 30% of the fresh produce is grown on this land that feeds the whole of the nation. So, given her exemplary answer to me last week, will she, in that vein, arrange for a meeting with the relevant Secretaries of State and a delegation, inevitably led by me, of affected colleagues, so that we can immediately put an end to this threat to our food security?
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for all the campaign work he is doing on this very important issue. It is not just an important matter for his constituents directly affected by it, but of course it has implications for our food security if large swathes of high-quality agricultural land are not being used to grow food and build this nation's resilience. He will know that the next questions to the Secretary of State are on the 14th of March, but I will write this afternoon on his behalf and encourage a meeting with the Minister and all colleagues who are affected by this issue.
Debbie Abrahams.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have to say that I was ashamed to be a Member of Parliament last night. However, I understand that from what the Speaker has, or the Leader rather, has said this morning, that she is agreeing that we should be observing the Nolan principles, and I was going to ask about a debate on that matter. But given the Chair of the Liaison Committee and others calling for a debate on Gaza, could she confirm that there will be a debate on Gaza that allow all of us to vote, but on government time?
Leader of the House.
The issue of substance yesterday is a very important and serious matter, and I can assure the House there will be ample opportunities in the future to talk about it on the floor of the House and to debate it, and I will announce further business in the usual way. But I would gently say to the Right Honourable Lady, I'm not ashamed to be a Member of Parliament, and I wasn't ashamed to be a Member of Parliament yesterday. I think if I was a member of the Labour Party, I'd be ashamed of that.
William Wright.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it is with regret that I've laid an early day motion in my name into Speaker. But can I ask the Leader of the House a procedural point that EDM continues to gather names this morning? Could she confirm from the dispatch box the process by which that motion can be brought as a substantive motion to the floor of the House to be debated and voted upon?
Leader of the House.
Well, the Government will always listen carefully to the views of this House, and the Speaker needs to command the confidence of it. And therefore, the future of the Speakership is a matter for members of the House and not the Government. But, of course, the Government will listen to any requests for debates in Government time, and members will also know other routes to secure a debate. As I reiterate, Mr Speaker has made himself available to speak to all the parties, and I'm sure his door is always open to members individually too.
Steve Bonnar.
Madam Deputy Speaker. Yesterday I took the opportunity to pop into the Young Lives v Cancer event that was sponsored by my honourable friend from East Dunbartonshire. When there, I met a very inspiring young person, Amy, who was telling me about the obstacles faced by young people when they receive a cancer diagnosis. Closer to home, my dear Uncle Tommy has just received a terminal diagnosis and been given 4 months to live. He is facing that news with great courage, great determination, and with his usual sense of humour. I wonder if the Leader of the House would like to join me in sharing our best wishes with the whole House, with both Amy and my Uncle Tommy Aitchison back home in View Park, and if we can have a debate on the floor of the House for cancer outcomes for all people across all nations of the UK, because the reality is that we must do better from the start to the very end of people who have cancer diagnosis.
Leader of the House.
I'm sure that I speak for all members in the House when we send all of our good wishes and support to his family member and their loved ones at this very sad news that he has had. Cancer outcomes have improved dramatically over the last few years, thanks to our incredible science base, our third sector that supports that research so critically, and of course the work going on in our NHS and the organisations that support them. But there is more to do. I thank him for what he has said today, and all of our good wishes go to his family.
Mark Francois.
Thank you. Dame Rosie. Collectively, last night was not our finest hour. But Mr Speaker has apologised to the House for his role in what happened. He showed evident contrition, and I think we should respect that. If we err in this chamber, we're expected to apologise to him, and we hope he will accept our apology in good faith. I think we should pay him the same courtesy. Speaking purely personally, I well remember everything that the Speaker did to help me and all of us when our great friend, my best friend, was murdered, as it happens, by an Islamic extremist who told the trial he did it because of the way David had voted in the House of Commons. Mr Speaker went the extra mile for all of us to help us all deal with that tragedy. Look at that plaque behind me. We should put last night right by obviously rerunning this debate in government time. Mr Speaker is a decent man, as the leader said. He is not the villain here. We should rerun the debate, and he should rightfully be in his place in that chair presiding. We are lucky to have him. Aren't we? No.
Can I thank my honourable friend? Can I thank my honourable friend for what he has said? I think there is no need for me to add to what he has said. He said it very well.
Stephen Darlton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it's rare that I find myself in complete agreement with the honourable gentleman opposite, but I have to say on a personal level, Mr Speaker, both when he was Speaker but also Deputy Speaker, was very, very serious in taking my own security concerns seriously and that of other members of the House, and he's always shown that. Yeah. Madam Deputy Speaker, despite the disagreements about procedure in the House, I know that my constituents in Cardiff South and Penarth are not interested in debates about procedure. They're interested in the facts on the ground in Gaza and the real concern, sincere concern about the suffering and horrors that we've seen. And in that regard, I wonder whether the Leader of the House could get for all members of the House some urgent guidance and updated guidance on how all of us are able to respond to concerns being raised by constituents who have family in Gaza, because many of us have been trying to deal with individual cases and supporting other colleagues, and guidance for those who are British citizens trapped in Gaza, those of allies in other countries that we might have good diplomatic relations with, and those who do not have citizenship of other places. What can be done to support those who, for example, are being denied healthcare or in really perilous situations for their lives? We need some urgent guidance so that we can all help and actually deal with the real issues, which is the suffering and horrors that we see in Gaza.
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for bringing us back to the matter of substance. He will know that I have worked with the Foreign Office and particularly the consular teams to make sure that members of Parliament have information, and particularly during recess, where they can get information fast if they are dealing with cases where people are particularly in peril or in immediate danger. I shall touch base with the FCDO after these questions and make sure that all of that advice and guidance is up to date and with members.
Wayne David.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
My fault, I was distracted. Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've been very pleased to help obtain additional funding for urgent A&E services at Northwick Park Hospital, which many of my constituents rely on for their health care. But collectively, Northwick Park, St Mark's, Central Middlesex and Ealing hospitals now have a collective backlog of some £56 million worth of urgent repairs that have got to be carried out. It is clear that this is a case across the country, that our hospitals are crumbling. We need to have a debate in government time on what we can do collectively to ensure we have the medical facilities in this country that our public demand, quite rightly, and we have the duty to provide.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for his continuing campaigning on ensuring that his constituents not only have the healthcare professional uplift that they needed and they now enjoy, but also that the buildings they are operating from are fit for purpose. The next questions to the Secretary of State are on the 5th of March, but I know he is a passionate advocate of this issue, and I will make sure that the Secretary of State has heard what he has said this afternoon.
Wayne David.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Could I say I think it is really important that we conduct discussions about what happened last night in a moderate and reasonable and respectful way. Yep. And I think we all have lessons to be learned. But I think for those lessons to be learned, we must be clear what actually happened and the precise chain of events. And I would like to ask a simple question of the Leader of the House, and that is, why did she decide to withdraw the government's amendment to the resolution?
Well, I would direct the honourable gentleman to the advice that the Clerk of the House gave and the consequences that stem from it. The result of the decision that was taken yesterday was that it would be the case that minority parties would never be able to have a vote on their own motion in an opposition day debate. It was a break with procedure of this House, and I know that there are conversations going on between the Speaker and the Deputy Speakers about how we can ensure the office of the Speaker is never put upon again in the way that it was yesterday. We all know what happened yesterday. If the honourable gentleman is not aware, he should talk to his front bench.
The most worrying thing that comes out of yesterday is that members of this House were being intimidated in relation to what they say and how they vote because of fears about the physical safety of themselves, their staff and their family. Added to that, we have a climate of hardline support, which has seen anti-Semitism on the streets of our capital city, and my constituents from the Jewish community feeling intimidated about coming into the centre of London. So can we have a debate on what we do to address this climate? It is intolerable. We cannot go on like this.
Yeah. Can I thank my right honourable friend for raising this very important point? I think it is beneficial to have an airing of these matters, to also ensure that we are focusing the services of the House and also other resources such as the police to protect members of Parliament going out and performing their daily duties for the people that sent them here. I know that it is very often the case that people like to beat up on members of Parliament and what they do, but we are sent here by the British people. What we do protects their interests, and we have to be free to use our judgment and vote in the way that we think is in their interests. Anything that interferes with that is an assault on democracy, and we need to ensure that members and the public can go about their daily lives and do their duty for their country without intimidation or worse.
David Linden.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I ask the Leader of the House, if we are to believe the Speaker of the House of Commons that his selection of amendments yesterday was to give the widest possible debate, can she answer why it was that he did not select the Lib Dem amendment? Because the reality is the SNP were stitched up with a deal with the Labour Party yesterday, and does she, like me, share a degree of incredulity that a Speaker who insists that you cannot speak in this place without a tie on now wants us to move on and modernise?
Yeah. Leader of the House. Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. It does afford me the chance again to direct members to the clerk's advice. Anyone that is peddling the line that this would have led to a wider debate has not read that advice.
Dean Russell.
Deputy Speaker. Last year I met with Watford Hackney Carriage Association to discuss the challenges they face for our brilliant taxi drivers, particularly following the closure of Prism nightclub in Watford in January, which was a devastating blow to the local taxi trade. Can I ask my right honourable friend how I can encourage ride-hailing service companies like Bolt to consider including drivers from the Hackney Carriage Association in Watford on their black cab scheme, which would contribute greatly to the local nighttime economy?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for raising awareness and demonstrating that a thriving nighttime economy is vital for local taxi drivers, but also the reverse is true too. Could I encourage him to seek a debate where a minister will be able to hear his views? He knows how to apply for that. Our taxi drivers play an essential role in our communities, and he will know that the next transport questions is on the 21st.
Tandasi.
Thank you very much. Madam Deputy Speaker, many of my Slough constituents, including members of the Sikh community and local Gurdwaras, have written to me regarding their serious concerns about the safety of protesting farmers in their attempt to march towards the Indian capital, New Delhi. Yesterday, a protester was killed during a reported standoff with the police, wherein the cause of death was, and I quote, a bullet wound to the head. The Punjab Health Minister confirmed that a second boy had also sustained a bullet wound, but luckily he has survived, with another 13 being treated for injuries in hospitals. And today, the BBC have reported that Twitter, admitted to being compelled against their wishes to take down legitimate posts and accounts of activists. So does the Leader of the House agree with me that freedom of expression and the safety of protesters and their human rights must be protected? And what representations has the government made to its Indian counterparts to that effect?
Leader.
Well, thank the honourable gentleman for raising this very serious situation. Of course, the government does support the right to protest and to be able to do so in safety. I shall make sure that the Foreign Office have heard his concerns and ask the relevant minister to get in touch with his office.
Ian Little-Granger.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. It's good to see you in the chair, sir. Can we have a debate, please, on rogue councils? Mid-Devon District Council, and I've talked about this many times, has now threatened its former leaders, not of our party but other parties as well, with legal action for disputing what has gone on with the Three Rivers development. There has been a lack of scrutiny and a lack of accountability. This is millions of pounds, not thousands. But share of the scrutiny, believe it or not, had a party on public funds. The chief exec is up to his neck in this. The leader of the council, who, as we know, packs perfume for a living, is unprepared to do the work that a council leader should do, regardless of persuasion. Can we please have a debate in government time about council's responsibility for dealing with situations that have gone wrong and not trying to sue members of their former colleagues who are trying to do their job?
Leader.
Well, the honourable gentleman is very diligent in pursuing these matters at all opportunities, including business questions. I would suggest to him that this is perhaps best raised with the Secretary of State on the 4th of March in questions.
Jim McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's a lot been said about the events of yesterday, but let's not forget that the outcome was that this Parliament has made a very clear mandate in terms of our position on a ceasefire in Gaza, and that's very important. Now let me move on to a constituency matter for the Leader of the House, if I may. People in Oldham work very hard for the house, for their family to live in, and they expect security for that. But some are having the roof literally taken from over their heads, including Mr. Potter through an agreement with a shade greener, a solar installation company. Thousands of people are affected by companies who weren't clear about the terms and conditions and are now taking out loans on the properties, making remortgaging almost impossible. Can we have a debate in government time on the impact of mis-selling in the solar industry?
Well, I will certainly, with regard to his latter point, make sure that the Secretary of State has heard what he has said, and he can put that to ministers directly on the 27th of February. With regard to his former point, it is in the interests of the British people that democracy is protected. As I said, the interests of the Labour Party are trumping democracy.
Sally Ann Hart.
Speaker, yesterday we saw the politicisation of the situation in Gaza by the SNP to engineer an issue within the Labour Party. Their opposition day, their right. The Labour Party members opposite were reportedly concerned about their security, as we are. But, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party frequently confects issues towards this side. We've seen members on this side called scum by a member opposite, inside and outside this chamber. We've been accused of starving children and of dumping sewage in our seas, and these are false assertions to generate intolerable hatred, death threats and abuse against Conservative MPs. Can my right honourable friend tell me whether the Conservatives have ever asked for special treatment or convention to be overturned to protect us, and does this illustrate that both sides of the House, not just this side, need to take a responsible approach to debate in this House and public discourse and in public life?
Leader.
Well, the honourable lady has made her point extremely well. On those debates, whether they were on storm overflows or free school meals, when members on this side of the House faced very unfair slurs and intimidation, what we did not do was ask that the procedures of this House are upended and put pressure on a decent man in the Speaker's chair to change those processes. That is because it is at the heart of our party that we put the interests of this country first. And one of those interests is that democracy in this place is protected.
Stephen Flynn, Leader of the SNP.
Mr. Speaker, last evening we saw the best of this House and its ability to debate. And we also saw the worst of this House as it descended into farce. And I think I speak for everyone in the chamber just now, and indeed yesterday, when I expressed my deep sorrow that that was able to happen, given the content of what it was we were debating. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, it descended into farce because of a decision that you made, and you alone made, to ignore the advice that was given to you by the clerks. In doing so, on the opposition day of the Scottish National Party, my colleagues and I were denied the ability to vote on a matter which is of grave concern to us and which over recent months we have sought to raise in this chamber at every available opportunity. It ultimately turned into a Labour opposition day. That, quite frankly, is not acceptable. And as I have expressed to you privately prior to proceedings here today, we do not, on these benches, therefore believe that you can continue in your role as Speaker. We do not have confidence in your ability to do so. So I would therefore welcome clarity, either from yourself or indeed from the Leader of the House, as to how we can best facilitate a vote in this chamber at the earliest possible occasion to that effect. Thank you.
Leader. Can I thank the honourable gentleman for his question? I hope that he can see in my actions yesterday that I am a servant of this House, and that even though it may not be in the government's interests to do so, narrow interest to do so, I will protect the rights of all minority parties to be able to air their views in this place, and to those parties that are afforded opposition day debates, that they are able to have those debates in the fullest sense and have votes on the motions that they put. We create the rules of this House, and the Speaker serves at our behest. I think, given the range of views that have been expressed on the floor of the House today, many interventions being supportive of the Speaker and pointing out the pressures that were put on him yesterday, that we take time to reflect. Mr. Speaker has said his door is open to all parties and individual members, as is mine. But as I said, the government will listen to this House. I am a servant of this House, and I will do its bidding.
I will also come in at this point. I will reiterate, I made a judgment call that didn't end up in the position where I expected it to. I regret it. I apologise to the SNP. Just bear with me for. I apologise, and I apologise to the House. I made a mistake. We do make mistakes. I own up to mine. I would say that we can have an SO24 to get an immediate debate, because the debate is so important to this House. I will defend every member in this House. Every member matters to me in this House. And it has been said, both sides, I never, ever want to go through a situation where I pick up a phone to find a friend of whatever side has been murdered by terrorists. I also don't want another attack on this House. I was in the chair on that day. I have seen, I have witnessed. I won't share the details, but the details of the things that have been brought to me are absolutely frightening on all members of this House, on all sides. I have a duty of care, and I say that. And if my mistake is looking after members, I am guilty. I am guilty because I have a duty of care that I will carry out to protect people. It is the protection that led me to make a wrong decision. But what I do not apologise is the risk that's being put on all members at the moment. I had serious meetings yesterday with the police on the issues and threats to politicians, threats heading to an election. And I do not want anything to happen again. So yes, I will apologise. I always will when I make a mistake. I did. I offer an SO24. That is within my gift and power. But I will also say I will do whatever it is to protect anybody in this chamber or anybody who works in this House. That is my duty of care. Andrew Percy.
Mr. Speaker, I was in Israel last week meeting with friends and survivors and hostage families, and I actually felt safer in Israel than I do in this country at this moment in time. And I have two reflections on that visit and on what happened yesterday. First of all, nobody in this House has any business, agency at all in telling the State of Israel where it is able to operate to seek to rescue hostages who are being raped by Islamic terrorists who hold them. Nobody has any business. Secondly, if we have a rerun of the debate we had yesterday, we will have exactly the same thing happen again, which is that members will not vote with their hearts because they are frightened and they are scared. And what do we expect? For months I've been standing up here talking about the people on our streets demanding death to Jews, demanding jihad, demanding intifadas, as the police stand by and allow that to happen. Last night, a genocidal call for from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, was projected onto this building. That message says no Jew is welcome in the state of Israel or in that land. This is going to continue happening because we're not dealing with it. So if we have a rerun of this, can the leader explain to me what will be any different and how will members vote with their hearts and their consciences? Because too many will not at the moment because of the threats we're receiving, threats that are telling us to leave this country in some of our cases and telling us that they want us or our families to be subjected to pain and to death.
Leader.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for raising this? I don't think there is any member of this House that has not come under threats and intimidation and increasingly death threats to them, but also members of their family as well. I know I have had many such threats, and other members have spoken about their experiences on the floor of this House. There are many things that we can do with regard to physical security, and I again thank the House authorities for what they did yesterday. And on the particular matter he raises with regard to the projections put on this building last night, that is being looked at by both the Speaker's Office, Parliamentary Security, the Metropolitan Police and Westminster City Council, who will be responsible for pursuing prosecutions in that case. But I would say again to all members of this House, we are elected here to carry out our duty and to take our responsibilities seriously. It is often a frightening task, but we cannot let this place be, and ourselves change what we think is the right course of action due to those threats. If we do that, they will have won, and they will never win. We have to show courage, and our constituents need us to show courage on these matters. We must vote and do what we think is right.
Andrew Bridgen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite there being a huge and growing public interest and concern over the issue of excess deaths, there remains on the front benches across this chamber a reluctance to engage with this issue, or in some cases even acknowledge it. So how convenient that this week the Office of National Statistics announced that they've suddenly found a large increase in UK population. Not newborns, Mr. Speaker, but older people. Where have these seniors been hiding for all of these years? The effect of this will be to suppress and mask the number of excess deaths. Can we have a debate on rebuilding trust in public health policy? And we won't do that by fudging the figures at the ONS, because now they're in complete conflict with those issued by other government departments, such as the Office of Health Improvement and Disparities.
Leader.
Well, I'm amazed that the honourable gentleman would ask of the government front bench for a debate whilst asserting at the same time that we will do everything we can not to have one. He knows how to apply for a debate. He has had many debates, Westminster Hall, adjournment debates. He is able to ask questions in this House. These matters are issues that many members on all sides of this House take extremely seriously, and I hope that the honourable gentleman in particular will reflect on what has been said on the floor of the House today about our conduct, about what we say about other members and the security consequences of doing exactly that.
Speaker, e-bikes and e-scooters are becoming increasingly popular as a mode of transport, but I'm very concerned to report that last year London Fire Brigade attended 155 e-bike fires, an increase of 78% on 2022. They also attended 28 blazes involving e-scooters. 3 people have lost their lives and approximately 60 people injured caused by these fires. Would my right honourable friend consider a debate in government time on e-bike and e-scooter safety and regulation?
Leader.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for raising this very important point. She will be aware that London Fire Brigade in particular have issued new guidance alongside the guidance put out by the Department for Transport on both e-bike and e-scooter safety for users, and the government has also published guidance on the 1st of February this year on consumer safety when purchasing such vehicles. But she is right to point to the fact that this is an area where future regulation might be prudent, given that we don't want people to have to focus on these matters in the way that she has suggested.
Dr. Matthew Offord.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You are entirely correct that the level of intimidation against members is unacceptable. But it's also many of my constituents who have faced a level of anti-Semitism that we have never seen before. Now, it's very welcome that commitments to prevent anti-Semitism are heard in this place, but often actions undermine that commitment. And my constituents remind me not only of the calls for jihad on the streets of London and the Metropolitan Police refusing to do anything about it, they remind me about men driving through North London threatening to rape Jewish women and the CPS then declining to prosecute them. So how do I reassure my constituents that this place does not treat issues of interest to my Jewish constituents differently when last night the Labour motion came after the moment of interruption and was nodded through without a vote?
Leader.
Well, on the matter, I know honourable members will be asking questions about what happened with regard to the vote last night. I can say to honourable members I have consulted with the clerks of the House and the vote stands because it is a matter for the chair. And I would encourage colleagues to go and talk to the clerks of the House to understand that more. But I fully appreciate the anger and disappointment from all sides of the House about people not being able to vote on particular motions or amendments last night and what happened after the moment of interruption. With regard to his substantive point, he is right. We have to end that climate that he describes. We have to ensure that every community in this country can feel safe. And he will know that the Home Secretary has been doing work with police forces, particularly the Met, but across the country, about the additional powers that they need to be able to tackle these issues, but also identify individuals who are behind this violence and intimidation. He has updated the House on a regular basis and he will continue to do that work. We have to end this.
Patricia Gibson.
Mr Speaker, given the unprecedented breach of convention yesterday and the unseemly antics despite the fact that we were debating the very, very serious slaughter in the Middle East, will the Leader of the House make a statement setting out her view on the need for this House to have full disclosure on exactly what conversations took place between Mr Speaker and the leadership of the Labour Party amid grave allegations of the Labour Party engaging in dark practices and possibly even blackmail before this unprecedented breach of convention, which has very sadly undermined confidence in our Speaker. And does she not agree that this is very important in the interest of transparency? And can I press the Leader of the House further that will she ensure that the SNP will be allocated another opposition day so that we can air our views and have our vote and express our constituents' concerns about the slaughter in Gaza?
Well, the Honourable Lady has got her views on record, and I thank her for it. As I said, I am very sympathetic to the SNP being given additional time, and she will understand that I will announce further business in the usual way, but I'm very happy to talk to the leader of her party.
Therese Coffey.
Deputy Speaker, yesterday I really do want to associate my comments with those of my honourable friend, the member for Chipping Barnet and for Hendon and indeed Brigg and Gore. People are intimidated every day on the streets of this country. And yesterday it felt, hearing the heartfelt of what the Speaker said, he is worried about the intimidation of people in this place. And we are reminded by the plaques of the people who've been murdered off the estate and on the estate. And we walk into this chamber, indeed, with the shadow of World War II, where this place was bombed by people who wanted to stop this country and to stop Parliament happening, and that's still there to remind us. In fact, the only place where we went through the lobbies yesterday was actually on my 10-minute rule bill, and it still surprises me that the Labour Party encouraged people to vote down things that would help community transport and disability transport operators. Still find that astonishing. However, coming back to formal business, in terms of the there was a paper laid yesterday by my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Energy and Security and Net Zero, called the Draft Strategy and Policy Statement for Energy Policy in Great Britain. It's supposed to be subject to affirmative resolution. My right honourable friend, the leader, will know that I was concerned that we weren't able to debate the national policy statements. I would be grateful, though, if she could find time for debate on this, given that it is subject to an affirmative resolution.
Well, with regard to the Honourable Lady's latter point, I will certainly raise that with the relevant department and make sure that they have heard what she has said today. With regard to her former point, it is absolutely right. We do all we can to protect members of Parliament. It is absolutely right that we hold to account those who seek to intimidate or threaten individuals and elected members of Parliament, but also those holding local government office as well, and that they face the full force of the law. But we cannot adapt our processes and procedures in this place to not have difficult debates. We have to be able to debate difficult issues. We have to stand up for our constituents and make the judgments that we think are right. And if we are adapting the procedures of this House because we are fearful of the consequences of standing up and saying what we think is right, then democracy has failed and the extremists have won. We must never do that. And as long as I'm leader of the Commons and of this place, that will never happen.
Ruth Jones.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Leader of the House may be aware of Newport Wafer Fab in my constituency, which is part of the South Wales Semiconductor Cluster. It's currently awaiting a new owner, but the transition process is in limbo because the site is awaiting a decision by the Cabinet Office under the National Security Act. This process has been dragging on for months now, and I've written to the Secretary of State in the Cabinet Office twice and the Secretary of State for Wales, and I've met with a number of ministers. I've had no response to my letters. So can the Leader advise me as to what my next steps should be, as staff morale at the site is plummeting and jobs are in danger of being lost with this ongoing delay?
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady for raising this, and I will certainly, if she gives me some further details, chase up that correspondence. Even if there are holding letters that are to be sent out from departments, it's important that those letters meet the deadlines that we expect in this place. She will know that the next questions to the Minister will be on the 29th of February, and she will know that it's very important that these processes are gone through thoroughly. I'd encourage it to raise for her to raise this in the next question session, but I will also make sure that we chase it up on the Honourable Lady's behalf.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. There are businesses who want to establish themselves in my constituency or extend their existing premises who are being told that they will take years before they get a grid connection. Yes. In addition, there are concerns up and down the constituency about plans for pylons. It's causing great concern. Can we have a debate in government time about the role and strategy of National Grid?
Yeah. Well, can I thank my honourable friend for standing up for his constituents and pursuing their interests in that respect. We want people to be able to get on and create businesses and to do all that their ambitions and the calling require of them. He will know that the next question session that he can raise this in is going to be on the 27th of February. I'll encourage him to do that, but I will also make sure the Secretary of State has heard what he has said.
Gavin Newlands.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Schools in my constituency are far more likely to travel to the Scottish Parliament for educational enrichment than this place. And obviously after the events of last night, where a third party's voice was silenced due to bullying and intimidation, and for no other reason, who can be surprised? But the Parliamentary Education Centre subsidises travel up to 75% of the cost, up to a value of £2,000. However, travel costs from Scotland, and don't be surprised, are significantly higher, and the vast majority of schools cancelled due to costs, including 2 from my constituency just this week. So can the Leader perhaps provide for a statement to be made on how we can fix this inequity?
Thank the honourable gentleman for raising this question. He will know that I think it is the Finance Committee of the House that has recently done a review of the travel subsidy in different parts of the country, and there are some changes that are going to be made to that with regard to school visits and the opportunity for people from all parts of the UK to come to this place. Perhaps I could suggest to the honourable gentleman that he may wish to speak to the chair of the Finance Committee about that. She sits on the House of Commons Commission, and her recommendations come to us.
Andy Carter.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Homeowners on 2 recently built housing developments, one of which has been completed at Appleton Cross in my Warrington South constituency, were promised a GP surgery. The development has been completely finished, and the Section 106 money paid across, but there is no GP surgery, and this is now putting extreme pressure on the existing facilities that are provided elsewhere in Warrington South. Can I ask the Leader for a debate in government time to look at how we can ensure that when planning permission is agreed and the infrastructure that is needed to go with it is agreed, that the local authority responsible for approving that planning permission ensures that the GP surgeries are delivered as required?
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for raising this on behalf of his constituents. He will know that in the Government's Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, we introduced new powers to be able to create a new infrastructure levy to replace the existing system and of developer contributions. And it aims to generate more funding for infrastructure such as the honourable gentleman raises, GP surgeries, shops, for example, to mitigate the impact of that new development and make sure that new people moving into that area and increasing the population size, that their needs are served. We have committed to further consult on the design of that levy before drafting regulations, and he may wish to raise this directly with the Secretary of State on the 4th of March.
Mary Glindon.
Madam Deputy Speaker, will the Leader of the House kindly join me in congratulating North Tyneside Benton Dean Primary School for topping the national leaderboard for active travel when taking part in the charity Living Streets WOW Walk to School Travel Tracker. Working with Living Streets and North Tyneside Council since last October, Benton Dean School has reduced traffic outside the school gate and reached an average walk to school rate of 57%. And could she also ask the Transport Minister to support Living Street's call for a nationwide default ban on pavement parking to help improve safer routes for walking and wheeling to school, as it's now over 3 years since the government consulted on this issue?
Well, I'm sure we would all join in the congratulations that the Honourable Lady has sent to her local school. It is a tremendous achievement and I thank her for raising it. I will not only make sure that the Secretary of State for Transport hears about her asks on pavement parking, but also I will encourage him to send a letter to her local school congratulating them on their achievements.
Dr. Ben Spencer.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm very proud to represent historic Runnymede and Weybridge. And I was present in the Chamber yesterday evening when 2 motions of great concern were passed without division. Now, I don't agree with the SNP on many issues, but I respect their position in this place as elected members of Parliament. And right now, it is on the record that the motions were passed unanimously, which, given clear vocal opposition, I believe misrepresents the will of Parliament. Does the Leader of the House share my deep concerns about the implications of this for our democracy and rule of law? And does she agree with me that opposition days must be upheld and respected in line with convention?
Order. The shadow leader of the House should not be shouting from the front bench. Just simply don't. Dr. Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Does she agree with me that opposition days must be upheld and respected in line with convention as an essential part of democratic operation of this House? And will she work to remedy the injustice of yesterday's debate?
The House.
I agree with my honourable friend, which is why the government took the actions it did yesterday. It is not in the government's advantage to facilitate debates which are likely to be critical of the government, but it is in the interests of our democracy that we do so, which is why we went in and did what we did to protect particularly the rights of minority parties in this place. As I have said earlier in this session, I fully appreciate the frustration at the recording of and how that vote was recorded yesterday. I have raised this with the clerks and taken advice. It is a matter for the Chair, and I'm afraid to tell the honourable gentleman that it will stand as it is.
Andrew Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Kellogg's factory in my constituency is an iconic reminder of the industrial heritage of Trafford Park. Like so many of my constituents, I was shocked and saddened recently to hear of parent company Kellanova's plans to close the factory. Given the devastation that this causes not just to my local community but in particular to those 360 Kellogg's employees who now face such an uncertain future, could we have a debate in government time on how we can safeguard manufacturing jobs in this country now and into the future?
Well, I would certainly encourage the honourable gentleman to raise his latter point and the issue he's asking for a debate on with the Secretary of State at the next questions on the 7th of March. But I will also write on the honourable gentleman's behalf, if he has not already done so, to the Minister overseeing the redundancy service and also the Minister for Employment at the Department for Work and Pensions. They will be able to provide his office with support and help in ensuring that the interests of his constituents are taken care of and that they avoid hardship.
James Grundy.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we all face difficult votes in this House. I myself
So the consequences of one of those votes when, after an opposition day debate some time ago, my elderly parents were threatened with being stabbed to death. It's the first time I've revealed this information publicly, and I know that other colleagues on all sides of the House will have been facing similar threats recently. I think, though, when we do vote on difficult matters, we should all do so under the same set of rules. I think that is very important. I think that yesterday, certainly many on this side of the House felt that the changing of the order of business meant that whilst entirely legitimately Labour MPs were protected from potential threats of violence and murder, people on this side of the House were consequentially more exposed to such threats. Would my right honourable friend agree with me that we cannot continue like this? Such breaches of procedure are unacceptable. Everyone's rights in this House to vote in the way they would wish and their security should be equal across all benches.
I completely agree with what my honourable friend has said, and I think he has made it very well. And I think that all members of this House, I hope, have got that message. With regard to intimidation, as I say, it is not just what is directed against us, it is directed against members of our family, perhaps most appallingly, honourable members' children as well. There have been many instances of that, and we will ensure that those individuals face the full force of the law. But I hope also, whilst others are reflecting on what has happened, particularly in the last 24 hours, those people who are also, whilst not committing a crime, are encouraging and giving licence to people on social media. They ought to reflect on their behaviour as well.
Ashley Dalton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've been here in this place about a year now, and I've spent almost all of that year trying to get some progress on the issues of agricultural flooding and water management boards. It's an issue that's of great concern to my constituents in rural West Lancashire. Now, an SI was expected on water management boards last summer. We've not seen hide nor hair of it. In answer to a written question, the Secretary of State has said that this will come after a consultation, but that's not been scheduled. Can the Leader of the House advise me how this relatively simple instrument can be expedited so that my constituents can move forward on this really pressing matter?
Yeah. Well, I thank the Honourable Lady for her diligence in pursuing this matter for her constituents. She can obviously raise this matter at the next question session, but I sense her frustration, and I will write to the Secretary of State at DEFRA to ask him to update her office.
Simon Baines.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In view of the Labour Party hijacking the SNP's Opposition Day debate yesterday, can I ask the Leader whether we can have a debate in government time to discuss the role of the Standards and Privileges or Procedure Committee, and whether there should be an inquiry into the role of the Leader of the Opposition and his Chief of Staff and the Opposition Chief Whip in their roles in the Speaker overruling the advice of the clerks on yesterday's Opposition Day debate?
Well, I would refer the honourable gentleman to the remarks I gave in response to the honourable lady opposite. I think the Leader of the Opposition needs to reflect on what he did yesterday, as well as what everyone else will have been doing.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On Tuesday past, in a point of order to your colleague, the Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Lady for Doncaster Central, in relation to Sinn Féin shorts monies. The Honourable Lady, the Deputy Speaker, suggested that we should bring it as a question, a business question day, so I've done that, Madam Deputy Speaker, on the advice of that Honourable Lady. As the House is aware, Northern Ireland Assembly has been re-established. Previous to that, MLA salaries had been reduced for a period of at least 2 years. The clear rationale behind that, of course, is that if elected MLAs were not doing their job, they should not receive full pay. And the general public, of course, saw the sense of it and supported that decision. Since the establishment of the concept of representative monies in 2006 as a separate analogous scheme to the short money scheme, over £11 million has been paid to a small number of Sinn Féin MPs. Sinn Féin who don't attend debates, who don't scrutinise legislation for the purposes of either amending or voting for it, are against it, and so monies paid from the public purse intended for that purpose are not used to that end. With that in mind, this has been raised by the Honourable Member for East London Derry, by my party leader, the Honourable Gentleman for Upper Bann, and other colleagues, including myself. Just when will Sinn Féin monies be reduced, and when will necessary steps to speak and vote continuing unacceptable abuse of representative monies in this lifetime of this Parliament actually happen? Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for getting that on record, and I have had some correspondence with other members regarding this. He will know that this is primarily a matter for the House, and he will have helped his particular point of view by getting it on record today, and I've listened to it.
Henry Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Research shows that those who intentionally inflict cruelty on animals often are also guilty of offences such as child abuse, domestic violence, and involved in bullying and organised crime as well. Can we have a statement from the Home Secretary on the establishment of an animal offenders register?
Can I thank my honourable friend for the question, but also all the work that he is doing on animal welfare, which he is very well known for. He can ask this of the Home Secretary directly on the 26th of February, but I think it is a very interesting suggestion that he has made, and it is, of course, a very clear indicator of further and perhaps more serious crimes to come.
Anna Firth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd just like to place on record, Madam Deputy Speaker, my thanks to the Speaker for returning to the House last night and for the clear explanation and heartfelt apology he made then, and for his comments today. I was in the House from about 1 o'clock. I was in the House from 1 o'clock through to the end. I spoke in the debate. I came here to represent my constituents, and I was unable to, and that was a shame on all of us. But if there was any interference in the process, that has to be looked into. Right. But Mr. Speaker came to this House, he's apologised twice, and on behalf of the people of Southend, that apology is accepted. As somebody who's come into this House very recently under very difficult circumstances, Mr. Speaker has been a great help and support and shown me and the Amis family a great deal of kindness. But the point remains, if long-standing rules and conventions were put aside because of Mr. Speaker's concern about members of this House, and if the ultimate cause of that, it's not what he said, if the ultimate cause of that is Islamic extremism, this is a very serious situation, and we have as a House to look into this. We have to have an inquiry as to exactly why those rules and conventions were not abided by yesterday, because those rules over many centuries have been developed not just to protect us, but to protect our democracy. And that did not happen yesterday. And I do ask and repeat all the calls for an inquiry as to exactly what went on yesterday.
Was he bullied?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, first of all, I can thank the Honourable Lady for getting her views about the Speaker on record. She has done that very well today, and I'm sure he would appreciate it. I reiterated at the start of my response to the Honourable Lady opposite that we need to, if we are going to do better than we did yesterday, we have to focus on the reasons why things were done. This House has never kowtowed to terrorists. The members of this House will never be dissuaded in what they think is the right course of action by intimidation, bullying or threats. That is not what happened yesterday. What happened yesterday was that the procedures of this House were corrupted to advantage one party. That is what happened. To the disadvantage of members on these benches and to the disadvantage of minority parties. We have to be clear about that. We have to be clear about that. And I'll tell you why, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Order, order. I think the honourable gentleman's trying to make a point of order for me. I don't know what he's trying to say. I'm sorry?
Isn't the word corruption unparliamentary?
Oh, no. No, please. It really is time to calm down and take the heat out of this. So I think, really, let us calm down. I didn't hear what the Leader of the House said. Leader of the House.
I fully understand why honourable members have raised this point on intimidation, but I would just say to right honourable and honourable members to reflect on the message that sends to people outside of this chamber. This House will not be moved, and members of this House will not be moved in carrying out their duties to the people that sent us here because of intimidation and threats going on outside. That has not happened. That is not the reason why this was done yesterday, and we should ensure that we are doing everything we can to ensure that that remains the case. It is the case, it will be the case, and it must be the case.
Thank you. That concludes questions to the point of order. Mr. Blackman, points of order are taken after statements, but if your point of order relates directly to the business that we have just concluded, I'll take it. Does it? Then I'll take your point of order now.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The long-standing convention in this place is that during oral questions, for the convenience of the House, ministers may choose to group similar questions to be answered together. When that happens, that's with the permission of the Chair, and by custom and practice, the individuals whose questions are grouped are notified by the department in advance that that will happen. Yeah. For 2 times now, my questions have been grouped when they've been lower down the order paper, and I've not been granted the courtesy of being able to ask my questions or been told in advance that that was going to happen. As a result of which, I haven't been present for when those questions have been called. Now, clearly, this is unacceptable on all sides. So could, through your good offices, encourage the Leader of the House to reinforce the view on departments that they must notify members in advance that their questions are being grouped.
The honourable gentleman raises a very important point, and as it happens, I recall the first of the incidents that he describes because I was in the chair, I called him, and he wasn't there. And knowing that he is an assiduous attender of this chamber, I was very surprised, and the honourable gentleman then told me that he hadn't been here because he didn't know his question was grouped. There is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that members ought to be contacted and that the department ought to be sure that members have received a message that their question has been grouped. And indeed, grouping is with the permission of the chair. And it will be stopped if it's not properly carried out, I should think. Is the Leader of the House happy with that, or does she want to add?
What do you say?
Further, Leader of the House, further to the point.
I've heard what the honourable gentleman has said. Madam Deputy Speaker is absolutely right. And if he wants to give me the details of the department, which I'm confident is not the Ministry of Defence, I will deal with it.
Excellent. Point of order, Mr. Linden. If the point of order relates to this business.
It does indeed relate to the proceedings that we've just had. I had hoped that Mr Speaker would be in the chair for this point of order. I did give notice to the chair that I would be making this point of order, and I've given notice to the Leader of the House. It is with a huge amount of regret, because I am somebody who likes to speak on a personal basis, that I have signed LED motion 412 indicating that I do not have confidence in Mr Speaker. Now, if my understanding is correct, he outlined today that his desire is to seek to allow the House to express its view. Now, the reality is that in the space of probably about 13 or 14 hours, scores of MPs, approaching I think 60 at the last check, have signed that early day motion expressing no confidence in the Speaker of this House. Can I ask you, Madam Deputy Speaker, to ask the Speaker to make clear to the Government that he has no objection to that motion of no confidence being tabled and allowing the House to express its view as he said he would? Because the reality is, whether we like it or not, the conduct of the Speaker of the House of Commons has raised wider questions, and the fact that 60 members of this House have indicated they do not have confidence in them means that that has now got to be put to a vote, and he cannot object to that.
Yes.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his very clear point of order. Let me clarify. He is asking me to convey to Mr. Speaker the message that he has just given and the question he has just asked, and I can undertake to convey that to Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Clark-Smith, is the point of order directly in relation? Mr. Clark-Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On a point of order, further to the point of order that was made by my right honourable friend for North East Somerset previously, I seek your guidance as to why a division was not called yesterday. It was clear there were both shouts of aye and no, and it's clear from the standing orders that in this scenario a division should be called.
Yeah.
I understand the honourable gentleman's concern, and I thank him for his point of order. I will simply say this. At the point just after 7 o'clock last night, when divisions were called, when questions were put to the House, the level of noise in this chamber and the amount of turmoil in this chamber made it impossible for the then occupant of the chair, my colleague, Madam Deputy Speaker, who was doing her best in very difficult circumstances to ascertain whether she could hear any calls of no. She has told me that she could not hear calls of no, and she acted accordingly. It's always very easy to go back in hindsight and examine what each of us might have thought happened, but I can assure the House that Dame Rosie did her very best in difficult circumstances, and that she thought she was carrying out, and thinks, and I think too, that she was carrying out the wishes of the House at that time. I do appreciate, as I was standing right there at that moment, I do appreciate that other people have different views on that matter, but I hope that the honourable gentleman and the House will accept my assurance that Dame Rosie did her very best in difficult circumstances. I'm very reluctant to take further points of order. Is it directly related to this business?
Yes.
In that case, point of order, Mr. Alan Brown.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On the point of order, I seek your guidance, and perhaps maybe as Chair of Ways and Means you might be able to give further clarity. As regards the response the Speaker gave earlier in the session there to the SNP group leader about the sequencing of the decisions they took. Now, yesterday, the guidance he gave at the start of the debate, that he said there was a precedent for taking another the main party opposition amendment to the smaller parties amendment. But in the letter from the clerks, it's quite clear there's no precedent on that. He also said it was about having the widest possible debate. But then last night, the rationale changed to security, and that's where at the session just there, Mr Speaker really honed in on security being the primary reason for the decision he made, and he intimated that lives were at risk. Now, that's a very grave matter, and implicitly implies that the SNP motion as it stood was effectively putting members' lives at risk in terms of the decisions they were going to make. It implies that somehow debating the Labour amendment somehow takes away the security risk, which actually then infers an assumption in how members are going to vote. Why was the security concerns not shared with other party leaders? And what did the security service say? And doesn't this set a precedent that mob rule can actually change the business of the House?
No, I have to stop the honourable gentleman there. He is trying to continue the debate and he is asking again questions that Mr. Speaker has already come to the chamber and answered. Mr. Speaker has dealt with those matters, and it's not for me to deal with them any further. I think there will be further opportunities to explore these matters, both in public and in private, and the leader of the Honourable Gentleman's party will no doubt be having discussions with Mr. Speaker. But I'm not going to continue these matters. If, sir, it is another point of order directly relating to this business, I will take it now. Dr. Ben Spencer.
On a point of order, thank you for taking my point of order, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think this is an issue of quite substantial constitutional importance, which I seek your guidance on. I think it's been made very clear in my question to the Leader of the House, the member of Bassett Law, several of the members, that there are concerns regarding the motions which were taken yesterday evening. In fact, the BBC is reporting that the House has approved the motions yesterday. The Labour Party is putting out adverts saying the House approved the motions yesterday, yet there is concern as to whether this was a valid vote going forwards. It is critical that the public have faith in our democratic process. What mechanism is there to void the motions yesterday and have a rerun?
No. Well, once again, the Honourable Gentleman reiterates matters which have already been considered, and I plead on behalf of the people that we all represent that this matter should now calm down, and that tempers and anger should not be encouraged to flourish further. But these are matters which might have to be further explored, and Mr. Speaker and the Leader of the House have both made it clear to the House this morning that there will be other opportunities to consider these matters and to fully debate them. Now, I will take no further points of order on this, recognising that members on all sides of the House have strong feelings, most of which have been expressed, and I do now plead for calm. As we move to the statement on Ukraine, Secretary of State for Defence, Grant Shapps.